In this edition of Careers That Matter, I'm joined by Aubrey Kelly, the CEO of UBC Properties Trust. Aubrey, welcome.
Thank you.
You're the CEO of what in essence is a property management/development organization. What does your job within that organization entail? Like on a day-to-day basis, what are the things that you do?
I think the best analogy I can give for a CEO is, it's like being on a sailing boat, and you're out there, and there's so many things you can't control. You can't control the wind. You can't control how high the waves are. You can't control how warm it's going to be that day, whether it's going to rain. There's very little actually that you can actually control of the overall environment. It's probably setting the overall direction that you're heading. And it's maybe tying off a sail or two, trying to say, okay, we're going to set our sails in the most efficient way that we can take advantages of all of these external factors that we can't control. We're going to respond and set our sails to efficiently harness that. But I think what a CEO does is you're setting the strategic direction of as much as maybe a captain on the sailing boat. You may have a team of 20 people on sailors on there getting this thing across the ocean, and you aren't necessarily an expert in any one of these areas. You may not be the best person at tying knots or setting a sail or climbing a mast, but I think you set the direction for where you're headed, and making sure there's an environment where people are all buying into where we want to go.
To continue with your analogy, though, as captain of this ship, you have to be aware of what the capabilities and abilities of your crew are, so that when you need to take on what could be an unexpected, event, how do you mobilize and realign the resources of the crew to address the challenge?
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. We've experienced that too many times really in the last several years. We experienced storms that we never had heretofore experienced, with COVID, with high interest rate environment that most of the people in our organization had never lived through or old enough to have lived through these early 80s and the cycle of high interest rates then. So it tests the crew. You try to respond we try to respond and react to these external factors, most of which we have little control over, but you keep trying to stay the course as best you can. And I think a lot of times you find out what members of the crew are going to survive, and which members of the crew are, it's like, well, we're lacking. So you learn a lot about yourself, and when these stormy times come.
So how many people in the organization, and how many direct reports do you interface with?
Yeah, we have about 70 people at Properties Trust, and I think my direct reports are about 5. Direct reports.
Yeah. So how many hours a day you work?
Usually 10.
Yeah, at a minimum?
Yeah, I mean, and as we know today with the phone is like that. That's really what anchors you to the job. So really, I mean, it used to be you'd try to have some true separation of downtime when you go on vacation, and that is just, I think in my role, it would be irresponsible of me to turn my phone off and have no contact with the office, even when I'm on vacation. I'm going to be going to, Mexico later in the month for a week, and it'll be working every day. I'm on vacation, but that's the reality, and not every CEO wants to manage things that way. Some truly want the break where they can turn the phone off and turn the email off. I would rather at least know what's going on, and I may not be working 10 hours a day. Obviously, I'm going to be on vacation, but it will be working every day, even there. And I think that comes a little bit with the territory.
Is that the same on weekends then for you? Even though you're technically maybe not on the job lives with you.
That's correct. Yeah, it is.
And that is something that I think that people who aspire to a higher role of responsibility in an organization have to live with, have to accept.
I do, and I think it's probably more than it used to be. I think that with the with smartphones and email following you around wherever you go. And I mean, I think that is a reality that probably a CEO 40 years ago did not deal with. So, but I think that it's a truly, a 365-day a year job that I'm not complaining. I enjoy what I do. I'm incredibly excited about what we do at Properties Trust. But coming with that is, it's a job that you really never really put down and forget about.
So let's rewind back through your career. Where'd you grow up? And when you graduated from high school, what was your idea of what you would, evolve into in your career?
I grew up in Wolfville, Nova Scotia, just outside Wolfville, in a rural community, just in a small town, and graduated high school there. Leaving high school, I enrolled in the local university at Acadia University, and was enrolled in business courses, and interestingly went full circle back there eventually, and going to get my MBA at SFU many years later. But at the time, took some business courses, then pivoted to more engineering, and actually that's what I ended up pursuing, to more interested in building and development and construction and that type of industry.
So mechanical engineering.
Yeah, civil.
Oh, civil.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah.
So, but not really knowing what I wanted to do with that. And, okay, well, you go to school and get a degree at something that I'm actually interested in, but at the time didn't know what I wanted to necessarily be when I grew up. And but left university in 93, and in Nova Scotia at that time, we were in the middle of the COD moratorium, and what that had done to the economy was that almost every young person leaving high school or university and looking for work was going west, and some were going to Ontario, and the trend in Nova Scotia at that time was most folks went to Toronto. And I had some friends and colleagues that had gone to Toronto, and for whatever reason, I can't tell you why. I have no idea. Just whether I liked the sound of the word Vancouver or whatever it evoked, and some emotional thing in me that I just said I'm going to Vancouver. None of my friends were. I didn't know anybody, and I picked up and moved to Vancouver in 1993.
And what was your first job here?
My first job, I landed here. My car broke down on the way across the trip across Canada, so I landed here with no wheels and no money, and had to, in those days, bought the Vancouver Sun in the morning, and that was your my usual routine, because you'd check the job wanted ads and you'd go to figure out where you were going to work. So I did some survey work for a while on a road crew, because I knew how to do that. But while I was still looking for a job in sort of the development industry, or being able to put some of my education to use. And, while I thought arriving in Vancouver was, I'd arrived at this, this mecca of industry and things that were going on. Looking back now, it's funny, because that was just my perspective coming from Nova Scotia. Looking back now, the real estate industry in 1993 was not in a great shape here in Vancouver. But I didn't know that before I moved here. I just said, hey, it's got to be better than Halifax, and out I came. So, but within a couple of months of being here, there was a development company that was looking for a junior project manager on some job, and I was fortunate enough to, I think they probably had 60 applicants at the time, because that's what the job market was like. And somehow I was fortunate enough to get a job offer from that company, and ended up staying almost 10 years at a development company.
And by the time you left, what position had you risen to within that organization?
So I had risen to from an assistant project manager to a project manager to a senior DM, or a senior project manager, and it was a company where I got to learn a lot about our industry. I was in our industry got exposed to all the different facets of our industry enough that I knew I wanted to stay here and do something in the land development industry and building stuff. I find it incredibly rewarding industry to be in. I can still drive, when I'm driving around the city with my kids, I still point out buildings that were built in 30 years ago now. It's hard to believe it's that long, but I can say, I've worked on that building. I did that on that building. I was a junior project manager on that building over there, and it's a rewarding thing to be able to be part of the built, to have created some of the built form.
It really is. So you stayed in the sector. Did you change just because opportunity presented itself?
Yeah, as I progressed in my career, I didn't change that many times my employers, but I did had the opportunity. If you fast forward to 2008, I was working for the Surrey City Development Corporation, and I was at that point the vice president of development and construction for that organization, and I can't stress enough the importance of finding a good mentor and having a great boss. In this case, a mentor and a great boss. And his name was Jim Cox, and he said to me, he was the CEO of the organization, and he was in his late 60s at the time. And he told me, he said, "Aubrey, I'm not doing this job forever." And he said, "You can absolutely do this job." And I'd never considered it before. I thought, I'm happy being a vice president of construction, and we'll do that. I knew how to do it. I liked it. But for the very first time in my life, I thought, maybe I can. But he said, "You need to do something. You need to go back to university." He goes, "I don't think you need to learn more," but he said, "It's tough for a board of directors to appoint you without maybe having your master's. So you should go back to university and consider getting an MBA." So hence the full circle back. I'd started with some business courses way back at Acadia University back in the day, and so at 37 years of age, I think, in 2008, with a brand new baby, my youngest, he was just born. He was only a month old when I went back into to do my MBA. So I did it at nights and weekends because I continued to work as the VP of Development and Construction, and it was Jim Cox's encouragement and for the first person that opened the door to give me the idea to even think about that, I never would have considered it. But he just opened the door enough to say, I think there was no guarantees. I wasn't going to necessarily be given his job when he retired, but he just said, "You should think about this." And when I eventually graduated a couple years later, and then Jim retired, and I did take over as CEO. My initial CEO job was at the Surrey City Development Corp, and then I made one move since then. A few years later, Properties Trust was looking for a CEO after their CEO was retiring, and I've moved there.
So mentor's really important.
Mentors.
So a young person is looking at you going, "Okay, what am I learning from your experience?" Mentorship.
I can't underscore it enough how that has changed. I can't speak for other people's career, but in my career, it made all the difference. Having those mentors and having just people that I be a sponge, be around someone that you, first of all, is it the right character person you want to be? Do you want to be like that person when you're about to retire? Want to have that type of career, have that type of reputation. And if it is, figure out how you can be close to them, and figure out how you can just absorb and soak up, like just being around them.
So, what would be the personality or the characteristic that you think was also important in ensuring that you have had a successful career? Like that's internal. Mm-hmm. What is it about you that?
I think there's a kind of a more curiosity I have about about everything, almost everything in life. I'm like, just curious about how it works and like, how can we improve this? How can we make it better? And I think there's just a bit of I've been that in all facets of my life so I think there was sort of this just curious about a lot of things. And trying to improve things. If they're saying, "Hey, can we do this better? Can we?" I think that's probably important in a role like this, to just take on a position and say we're going to do the status quo and we're going to put this on cruise control. I'm not sure that's how companies can survive in 2024. I think we need to figure out, notwithstanding all of the headwinds that we face in 2024, is if I don't really truly believe I can make something better, then I'm not the right candidate to be CEO. I got to firmly believe that.
Wow. Well, you've had an inspirational career. Thanks for sharing it so that others may benefit from your experience. Thank you.